With X-Men 97 Season 2 supposedly to be released later this year, the X-Men involvement in Avengers Doomsday, and Peach Momoko's Ultimate X-Men just wrapping up, I think now is a great time to reflect on the rise in the X-Men's popularity after years of mediocre movies and being pushed to the back in the comics industry. You see, despite the X-Men's shortcomings, the X-Men have actually been a massive pillar in the Marvel Universe. 16 consecutive years of Claremont X-Men, a very popular 90s show, and a movie franchise that defined the Marvel superhero team for over 20 years. In this video, I want to reflect on the X-Men's recent rise in popularity with a look on the first season on X-Men 97, a look at if the X-Men's involvement in Doomsday can live up to expectations, and whether or not the future of X-Men in the comics is going to follow through with the rise and success the X-Men have found themselves.
If you want to know what a motherfucking boss looks like, bitch, you looking at one. A bitch that handles big business.
X-Men 97 is probably the best X-Men adaptation right behind Logan. And a massive reason as to why is because the people behind this show actually care for each of the individual characters within the team. Sprinkle in some gorgeous animation.
Finger licking good special. That's what I'm talking about.
And you have yourself a perfect season of television. Or near perfect, in my opinion. You see, even though I love this show, I can't help but feel like this show has a massive pacing issue. In every episode, the characters seemingly go through the most severe events in their lives. In one episode, Storm loses her powers. Do we get enough time for the characters to react to one of their own team members leaving because of this?
No.
Because in the next episode, Inferno happens. And in this episode, do we get enough time to reflect on the Jean Grey that we've known has actually been a clone this whole time?
No.
Because in the next episode, Gambit dies. At least in this case, we see Rogue take Gambit's death personally, and she even has a really well done emotional heart-to-heart with Nightcrawler. Although, I can't help but feel like everything else in this show that has been very traumatic for these characters are pretty glossed over. For example, with Storm, even though she goes through a very emotional journey, we don't really see with how the team grapples with losing one of their own by losing their powers, and how maybe they could be a danger from the depowering technology, something akin to the Mutant Cure storyline. But no, for the X-Men, Storm leaves with no powers and then comes back with powers. For Season 2, I hope that the show gets to slow down for the characters to actually get moments to reflect on their surroundings and to actually grapple with the stakes of the story. And to also keep up the animation quality, but I think they have that covered.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
So the X-Men movies are pretty inconsistent in quality. Some range from pretty good, others pretty terrible. But despite this, they have found themselves with a pretty dedicated fan base and had an amazing send-off in Deadpool and Wolverine, which is a movie that I think is just a love letter to the Fox Marvel movies in its entirety. However, as many people know, the Fox X-Men are making a return in Avengers Doomsday, with James Marsden, Sir Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Rebecca Romijn, and Alan Cumming returning as their characters from the Fox universe. And while I am excited to see them return as their characters, I can't help but feel like the audience might not have a strong enough attachment to these characters. I'm reminded of Infinity War and Endgame and how some of the characters die, and how the Avengers grapple with that loss. Will the audience have that same bit of attachment with the X-Men? They make up a good portion of the cast, and yet a majority of the people watching may not have watched the previous X-Men films. So that proposes a massive problem with this movie. Not only do they have to juggle with all the other characters in the story, but they also have to make the X-Men work, despite not having any foot in this race prior to Doomsday. I don't want to drag the Russo brothers in the dirt, but all I can think of is whether or not they can do Marvel's most famous team justice in what is looking to be the biggest film of the year.
You know what I'm saying? It ain't gon' it ain't gonna work.
Ultimate X-Men by Peach Momoko just recently got wrapped up, and while I haven't had the luxury of reading it yet, I have recently finished with the Krakoa saga, and yes, I know, I'm late. But after reading so much X-Men, I have thoughts. You see, I have mixed opinions on Krakoa. On one hand, I love the introduction to the world built in this new era of the X-Men and how it feels like a massive tribute to the history of the X-Men. The massive amount of expectations I had for this saga really got me hyped. On the other hand, it never really lived up to those expectations, and during the final half of it, it kind of fell off for me. And with this in mind, I'm reminded with how many people were interested in getting back into X-Men comics after 97 dropped, and the X-Men fever everyone got. I mean, I would know because I was one of them. Situations like that could be very similar with something like Doomsday, or even just the second season of 97. The current X-Men comic landscape can be something a new reader can find very difficult to get into. It's not like Batman or Spider-Man where you can just start with a comic that looks cool. The X-Men is a team that goes through so much changes, and getting into that now is looking to be more of a challenge than before, especially just wrapping up the biggest era for the team since Decimation. Many would say start with Krakoa, but Krakoa is more complex than many think, with a wide array of stories and a slight obligation to read all of those stories so that you don't feel left in the dust whenever a major event, like X of Swords, happens. But not every story has a consistent quality with the other books. Like, bro, I'm not trying to read Kid Cable. Perhaps I may be looking too far into this, and maybe editorial will have a run of X-Men come out around the same time Doomsday releases to match the MCU synergy like many times before. But if not, there could be a slight catastrophe from Marvel in relation to newer readers for the X-Men.
What?
We're flying to Philadelphia!
Oh, hell no!
That's the
Oh, hell no!
The X-Men are Marvel's underdogs in comparison to the other Marvel teams. They aren't necessarily a family like the Fantastic Four, but they aren't just a group of co-workers like the Avengers either. They are a group of multicultural, layered individuals who work well together and go through trials and tribulations like any dysfunctional team. They are a soap opera and a heartfelt drama, a group that knows each other in and out, but in the past 20 years or so, they haven't been given the proper attention that they deserve until recently. I love the X-Men, and I want everyone else to love them too. But unconditional love is nothing but surface-level admiration. Even I must grapple with the flaws of them. The question is, can they improve upon themselves? Or must we go through the exact same thing over and over, not allowing ourselves to move on to explore new possibilities? I hope that the next season of X-Men 97 can take what we loved before and improve upon it. I hope that Doomsday is actually able to blow our minds like Infinity War instead of cheap thrills and nostalgia bait. And I hope that the comics for the X-Men will be able to find their footing after years of being on that damn island. Will my hopes for the future for the X-Men come true?
I don't know.
We'll just have to wait and see.